I thought she'd be taller.
I thought she was Shu. Well, I guess she's Shu enough. Tell her, oh, I don't know, good morning.
I don't actually speak Shu, Your Highness.
Then what are you?
She is Alina Starkov, the Sun Summoner.
Hey, I'm Derek.
And I'm Noah, and you're listening to A Bite Of,
Where we take our current favorite pop culture obsession and we enjoy it one nibble at a time.
and welcome as we continue our coverage of Shadow and Bone.
Chidu and Boone.
Before we get into it, our normal little tiny announcements, just to remind you, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or any other platform that lets you review or rate our podcast and you've enjoyed what you've heard, go ahead and do that. Because it's literally the best way to spread the word of the podcast. It gets us shown more in front of people's faces. And if you like us, we want other people to see it too.
Algorithms.
Yeah.
That's all I know how to say.
Yeah. And make sure you're following us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We have a Patreon, bonus episodes. You get to pick what we cover, post exclusive things on there. Got a Discord. Go ahead, check out all this stuff. Check out all the other stuff that we offer aside from just talking about our favorite current pop culture obsessions.
Come join us on this journey in whatever way you'd like. Let's take a look back at our last episode. So in the last episode, which was called We Are All Someone's Monster, which is just a light title, nothing crazy about it. We see that Alina and Mal get taken off of the ship where all of the craziness happened, and she first let her Sun Summoner powers show. She's whisked away to the Darkling's tent, who we finally seen in person. Then after that, she goes straight to Os Alta, where some Fjordans try to take her, and she witnesses the Darkling's cut. Kaz and the Crows are trying to find their way through the fold, which will get them on the ship to Ravka. And that's pretty much the last episode.
Right.
How easy was that?
It's still a lot of setup in the second episode, but now I think we're getting into the meat and potatoes of the show and the world. It's expanding a little bit more. More characters are coming to the show. Super excited to get into this part. This is what I'm excited about.
Yeah. Warning, spoiler, 1. Another warning. When you thought it was complicated and switching back and forth between 2 different storylines, in this episode, we're throwing in a third.
Yeah, hopefully they all converge.
At some point?
Dear God.
Something. All right. So let us officially take a bite of Shadow and Bone, episode 3, The Making at the Heart of the World.
This episode starts off with an excellent, I would say very well done vision of this white stag. And for first viewers of the show and people that may not have read the books, interesting, weird. Why is now all of a sudden she's seeing this stag with antlers that are just crazy?
Gorgeous antlers. They almost make a full circle. They're in the sunlight, just a magnificent beast.
And we see that this is Alina having a vision.
Yeah.
Of this. She wakes up in bed. She's still dirty from her journey from the First Army across the fold, all of that, into the Little Palace. So we also hear of one of many voiceovers in this episode of Alina writing a note to Mal. And in walks Genya. I was so excited. I could not wait to have this character finally introduced. Loved her in the books.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So happy she's here.
Agreed. And I think that what was so interesting about her in the books is what I think that we're going to see here is that she does come off sort of gruff in the beginning, and then you kind of learn to love her. And I think we already have that, right? She's sort of stoic. She doesn't want to be bothered with this nonsense. But I have a feeling as we go on, we're going to love her more and more.
Yeah, all these other maids walk into the room and Genya's kind of leading them. And the first thing she says to Alina is she's just disgusted with how dirty she is. She's like, do you ever take a bath? Like, give her a break. She almost got killed. She went through a lot and she went to bed real quick after finding a knife to put under her pillow. Leave her alone.
She's like, I walked into this room and I could smell you. You stink, lady.
I do want to say she is like picture perfect from the book. This is exactly what I pictured reading the book. Great casting choice for Genya. Love it. Red hair.
Agreed.
So then they force Alina into a bath where she says that she could wash herself. Apparently not, because you're disgusting and dirty.
I mean, here's the question, right? Even if you were thrown into some sort of palace situation where you were now like the guest of honor, I don't think I would feel comfortable with random strangers bathing me.
It seems to be like a trope in fantasy
That's
things.
a thing.
Where, I mean, the first time we saw Daenerys in Game of Thrones, she was having to get bathed and the water's too hot. You know, it was like, but she was also 14. So it was really weird, that whole situation. But it just seems like a trope in fantasy where it's like they have to bathe them.
I think like it was, but like it feels like it was based in reality, because even if you look at Bridgerton, right? Like they have to get the water for them. They're there to wake them up. They're there to get them changed. It's like the richer you are back in the day, fantasy or not, the less you had to do for yourself.
Like bathe yourself.
Yeah, or put your own clothes on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad Alina is just like, yeah, I'm good.
No, thank you, strangers.
I'm used to like group showers back in the first army. Like,
I'm used to not showering at all.
yeah. We then find out from Genya that she's going to be presented to the king to show that she is the hope for banishing the Shadowfold within an hour. Good job waking her up. Like in a timely manner, guys.
Yeah. I mean, I do have to say though, I think that if this was me, I would rather know last minute than like a while before, because then I'd be panicked the entire time.
I guess. I mean, maybe they did try to wake up and she didn't wake up. Anyway.
Very tired. Very tired.
Then this other maid, just to remind us that there is racism and disgusting people in this universe, she tells Genya that she should change the way her eyes look because she's half shoe.
Right.
What? Shut up.
You know what, though? Also, like, here's the tea. This is the Sun Summoner.
Well, right.
You are a servant in the palace. You mind your P's and Q's, lady. I don't care if you're wearing a hat or not.
I did like how, and we're seeing that just like in the books, Genya is like she's an opportunist. So she saw that opportunity to banish all of the other maids. So Genya can just work on her one-on-one.
Yeah.
Which I liked. And Alina sadly kind of begged her, like, oh, don't change my eyes. And Genya's like, I don't care about your eyes. I just care about you looking good. Like,
right.
Why would I care about that? Which I liked.
Yeah, because there's one thing of taking away bruises and cuts. It's a whole other thing of changing someone's facial structure. And I think looking at the character of Alina, although this thing is what sets her apart, this is also the thing that ties her to her family still.
Right.
You know, so she doesn't want to lose that.
Yeah. And also, she can't lose that. I mean, that's who she is.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, this is just speaking in general terms about the show. It's why it's so important that she is half shoe to show the representation of an Asian main character, and having her eyes change would defeat the purpose.
Well, right. And I think that, you know, thinking back on it, especially in the books, you have the Fjordans to the north, you have the Shuhan to the south, you have Revka and all of these people, which we can assume are white.
Yeah.
You know, and a missed opportunity in the book was you would assume that there would be some type of racial discourse.
Mm-hmm.
And in the books, they don't really do that. And I don't know if that was on purpose and it was more of like just, you know, these nations are fighting and you can kind of assume it.
Totally.
But it was never talked about. It wasn't explicitly shown in the books.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's either righting a wrong or making it more realistic, sadly, or she wanted to explore more on that because it would make, I mean, if they don't like the Shuhan not only because of what they do, but because of who they are, it just adds more depth to the character.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that she took this opportunity. And I don't know if this is Leigh Bardugo's doing. I'm sure she had to sign off on it at some point, but I'm glad that they're exploring this part.
Yeah, I kind of am interested. You know, when they describe Alina in the book, they never talk about any of her features really. But
she's meek.
She's meek, mild. Oh, I'm so unassuming. I'm the savior. But I think I remember reading in my research that Leigh Bardugo and the folks that created the show set out to purposely cast someone that was half Asian.
Yeah, I mean, that's a testament to they knew what they were doing and the kind of story they wanted to tell. And also, I mean, good. Cast more diverse people in shows and movies.
Heck yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we also get Genya explaining a little bit that she's a tailor. And this is something new. It's more of a it's a rare type of Grisha. So they're like a subset of the Corporalki. And they're like healers / can change appearances. They're like plastic surgeons with little science.
Yeah, right. Because you see her, she's actually like mending wounds and things like that. But as we know, she could actually sort of change structures of the human body. It's not just healing, it's more than that. You know, she makes a comment, which I'm very sure they took straight from the book, where she says like, would I be as important if I didn't make the queen's tits less saggy or something like that?
Yeah, she also talks about how she's been working on herself
Since she was 3.
But I feel like, not to bring up WandaVision, but is this like a ship of Theseus type thing? It's like, how much of the original thing are you going to take away? Then it's not going to be the original thing, but then are you not going to just go back to what it was in the first place? So I think that was an interesting thing for them to say. And it gives a little more and a little bit, oh, what is she talking about? You know?
Oh my God. I can't believe you brought up philosophy right now.
Yeah.
My brain can't handle it.
So this is also one of the first times since Alina's been in the little palace that she's connected with somebody.
Mm.
And we see Genya curl her hair, kind of take away some of her cuts. She doesn't want her to take away the cut that's on her hand because it's sentimental to her. But Genya's like, oh, sentimental. We'll work on that.
Rudeness.
Which is a little creepy.
Yeah.
Just going to say.
I do like when she sits her down in front of the mirror and we see a little bit more of how her small science works, right? Because it's not magic. The whole thing is that they take things that exist and then they manipulate it. So she kind of takes these stones, maybe onyx. She takes the color of them and infuses them into Alina's hair. You know, she takes some red stones. That's how she makes the rouge. You know, it's all sort of this base of where this little science exists and how it works. I thought that was really cool to see.
Yeah, that was really, I think it was so subtle that, I mean, the effects that they used for this, I didn't notice it was happening until it was happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just so seamless, and I thought it was so well done. I mean, it looks better than when Alina's like shining with her sun summoning powers, which I think
we need to talk about that. We definitely need to talk about that.
But this is really good. I feel like a lot of the budget went into the tailors of the universe.
A lot of the budget went into the Keftas and this one particular small science.
Yeah.
Some other things, not so much.
And last thing on this scene, Genya mentions very offhandedly that she was gifted to the queen by General Kerrigan. So I'm sure we're going to explore that more in the later episodes. If you read the book, you kind of know where that's going, unfortunately. So next, we meet up with their crows, and we see Inesh, Jesper, Kaz, and the conductor and West Ravka, and they're going to find a Heartrender named Nina, who can get them into the little palace. Because if you remember, I mean, how are they going to get in there? It's better if they have a Grisha on their side than not.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, there's always going to be another barrier in their journey. It's like, first we need a way across the fold. We got that. Now we need to think about how we're actually going to get into the little palace to get to Alina.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, we didn't get any scene of them crossing from Ketterdam to Ravka. It was like, surprise, we're there.
Do we need it, though?
I don't know. I like boat stuff.
Maybe. I mean, just speed it up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it was a bit of a jump.
Yeah.
It's just weird that this whole character existed that was like, you need to tell me that you have a way across the fold in order to get on my ship. And now he's gone.
Yeah. I mean, story. Move
All
the
right.
plot along.
All right. All right.
So we also hear that the conductor explains that Nina despises involuntary service. So she's not too keen on the crown and serving that. So that's kind of why she's in West Ravka at this point. And we see Nina get into an inn's room. She kind of uses her Grisha power to still have the room that she has. And while she's in there, she gets attacked by Fjordan witch hunters.
The drüskelle.
Yeah. And she ends up, she puts up a good fight. Initially she was like, I got this, but then she gets hogtied and all, glass is being broken.
Oh yeah, glassy smashy smashy.
Yeah.
But
and
then she gets boloed.
she gets boloed and then she gets taken.
Yeah.
And that's all we see from her.
Bummer.
The crows show up in her room and we're like, oh, she's been taken. Oh, well, press on with the plan outside of that, I guess.
Yeah. Something that's really crazy is that I feel like for the first time we see Inej actually disappear. Like, I thought she always just had like stealth spy skills.
Oh, no.
But it seems like she can actually turn into smoke of some sort.
I mean, she's the Wraith.
I mean, it's bitchin'. I'm not complaining at all. I was so excited to see it because I feel like it was never really spelled out for us. But she like...
Yeah, that's how she does her like Batman appear and disappear type thing. In this scene, when they're talking about how they're going to get across the fold, the conductor gives them like a grocery list of things that they need to get so that way his vehicle can transport them across. And one of those items is a goat, question mark.
Gotta get that goat.
Which I was like, oh no, they're going to give it to the Volcra.
No.
Why else would he need a goat? Because I am not connecting the dots here.
This goat truly turns out to be the goat of this episode.
Right.
The greatest of all time.
The crows end up splitting up to gather these items, then to meet the conductor in the dead of night
Right.
at the Shadowfold to get across it.
Kaz is like, listen, I'm giving you each something to get off the shopping list. That's all you have to do. No side treks. Don't get into crazy business. Can I trust you? They're like, yes, boss. Doesn't work out that way.
Nah, well, of course not, but it does work out in the end, so
Yeah.
it's fine. So back at the little palace, Genya is escorting Alina in her gold veil, question mark,
Bizarre.
and explains that she needs to demonstrate her powers in front of the court. I just want to say that I like Alina so much more in the show than I did in the book. It's interesting to not really like the protagonist, especially in the first book. Like there was just nothing. She never
It's
did
not that
anything.
you disliked her.
Right. I just wasn't rooting for her. It was more of like, if you listen to our Before You Watch Shadowbone,
I like that. Shadowbone.
Shadow and Bone episode, I had talked about in the book, Alina and the characters were okay. They were fine. They were basic, normal characters, but the world is what was compelling in the story. But in this one, I'm actually liking Alina. And I think it's because we're seeing, she's not
Personality?
Well, right.
Yeah.
And she's not being thrown into this plot point. She still kind of is, but we're seeing her deal with the transition of it.
Yeah.
And I'm just liking it so much more.
Yeah. You said in the book, Alina, more like Blaina. You said in the show, Alina, more like Yelena.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think that Jessie Maylee is really infusing a lot of humor into the role, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, especially with this scene. So they give her, they dress her in like First Army attire, which
Totally.
she didn't look like that when she was in the First Army. Apparently this is what the king thinks that they look like. But why the gold veil?
I don't get that at all. It's like First Army, horrible, ill-fitting trench coat, hat, and then a veil on top of the hat?
Yeah, and I just love, if you just watch Alina, if you've already seen this episode, go back and watch this part, because Alina's, the way she moves her head and how she's clearly like, this makes no sense. I'm trying to look at the ceiling, but I can't.
You can just tell that she's having, like, Jessie is having so much fun with this veil.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they put this on her, and I really feel like she made these decisions herself.
Oh, just wait until I show you some behind the scenes footage.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, she was acting like
she's
a
a
goof.
prankster.
Yeah, she was acting like a goof.
Yeah. I saw this whole thing. She's trying to catch a cricket. Do you see that?
No.
She's like, I want to catch this cricket because Ben is afraid of them. And she's trying to catch a cricket to scare Ben Barnes.
Oh, that's cute.
Fantastic.
I mean, I love it when actors are so like buddy and they are really enjoying their time doing it, because I think it shows in the role.
100%.
They love
you need
being
that
there.
chemistry.
Exactly. Totally agree. And then just as darkness comes creeping up on you, the Darkling, aka General Kerrigan, meets up with them. And we get some exposition a little bit more on why I'm trying not to call what the Grisha do magic. He explains to Alina, it's not magic, it's a little science. We manipulate what's already there. Okay, but it looks like magic to me. So I...
Listen, the hand movements clearly say magic. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I don't see no beakers and Bunsen burners.
Where's your lab coats?
Thank you. Goggles?
So
Nope.
Alina is brought before the crown court. And again, looking adorable in her gold veil, even though it looks ridiculous. The queen is surprised that she's not all shoe, but she's shoe enough. So again,
Sure enough.
we're seeing that racism and classism and all of that trickles down.
Yeah, and it's also that typical thing of like the and queen, aka the monarchy, just being completely oblivious to what actually is going on in their kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, the king is like a big slob. Doesn't look like he really could do anything in any given dire situation.
He has a sword.
Yeah, the queen looks
Bitch.
like she's a bitch. I have nothing else to say about her. She's a
just
bitch.
a straight up bitch.
Yeah, and Genya fixes her saggy tits. So
Boobies down to the floor,
there's
swinging low.
that. We have the queen trying to tell her maid next to her to translate what she's going to say, as if she's just assuming that Alina doesn't speak Ravkan and she speaks Shu. And I loved that Alina wasn't going to let that happen.
Yeah, I appreciate that she spoke up.
Yeah, she spoke up. She's like, I speak Ravkan. Hi, by the way.
Shake my hand? Maybe?
In
Jeez.
this moment, I did like, this is the first time in the show so far that I liked General Kerrigan a little bit, because he kind of tries to diffuse the weird tension that's going on. He has a little speech that talks about how she's going to change the future. Like, you're being racist to her right now, but she is literally the one that's supposed to defeat the Shadowhold, and you're being an asshole.
I also think that it shows that Kerrigan has more control than he sort of lets on.
Right.
He has all these people in the palm of his hand, and he can kind of get people to do whatever he wants, even the king and the queen.
Exactly. Then, I mean, it's time for her to demonstrate her powers. He turns to her, tells her to call the sun. He grabs her arm, and she lights the heck up.
Yeah, and everybody's like, oh, yeah, yes.
Yeah. And the court applauses.
I live for the applause.
And then the king asks, how long until she defeats the Shadowhold?
Just like that.
General Kerrigan's like, no, she needs to train. Like, she's like missed like 11 years of training.
Can we take a second and just talk about her lighting up?
Yeah, okay. So when it's on her, it looks bad. But the like dome of light that she makes looks good.
Also, in the last episode, when he cuts her open with his thumb knife, that was glorious. That thing of light, that beam of light that shoots out of her. This is it's like baby powder exploded on her or something.
Yeah, whenever and it's interesting, the effect, whatever they have on her that has like this sun beamy, like starts small and then goes on the whole screen. Whenever the camera moves, it's kind of almost like it's fixated on that point. So it makes the effect look really cheesy and not like it's, I don't know how to explain it. Just watch it again and it's like, I'm not trying to tear this apart, but it just doesn't look great. It's like the dome of light does, but it's like, maybe just don't make her shine like that. Why does
she have to glow like that? Yeah.
Right.
And I also think there's something that's like lightly aggravating. Maybe it's because it's early on in the series and we're not supposed to see the full effect of it yet. But I feel like whenever it's fully building up, it always cuts away from her. And then the camera comes in from behind someone to watch the dome of light. Why aren't we able to ever see it fully realize?
I mean, maybe we will.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. I hope so. But I think it's aggravating now when we're all supposed to be impressed by this power and we haven't seen it yet.
Also, she can't even do it by herself. So, I mean, maybe when she's like able to control it a little bit more, we'll get to see more of it. And now we're just kind of seeing it like after it comes out.
Yeah.
I don't know. No idea. After the crowd applauds and he lets go of her, her power goes back in and he tells her, welcome home, Miss Starkov. So I think that not only is she thrusted into this, that she's also having to grapple with like, okay, are these kind of my people? Because once he leaves and she turns and sees all these other Grisha, they all welcome her and they're like, oh my God, like you are the sun summoner. You're this person. And you see her on her face. She's a little happy. She's like, oh, okay. Like I'm a big deal, or like I'm accepted. Like people aren't commenting on me being half Shu or think of me as less than, until
of course
Zoya comes up to her. And if you remember Zoya from the first episode, she was the one that was going to tumble with Mao in her Grisha tent when he stole those contraband grapes. And she says that you stink of orphanage half-breed, and then walks away. I don't understand where this is coming from. We had like one episode with her and then all like I mean, is she just always borderline racist? Is she just jealous?
Well, yeah, I think it goes back to Mal because she tried to make a pass at Mal. Mal said no thanks, and then she found out that it was to go to Alina. So it has to do with her being jealous of Mal, and then I think of the fact that she's also getting attention from the Darkling, which is driving her crazy.
That's true.
I mean, she a bitch.
Right.
I mean, it feels like in the show, she at least has a little more reason for wanting to hate Alina. I think in the books, it was straight up just her being a snob.
Yeah, in the first book, she's very much like the mean girl in this school to Alina, and she does have a more prominent role later on. So I'm curious to see if they're going to do that earlier than they do in the books. We'll see. Because it is interesting they keep showing her more and more. Because if she was just the mean girl, I don't think she would keep popping up as much.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see. But still, you're a bitch.
Yeah.
For saying.
Also, in this scene, we see the king kind of giving our first mention of West Ravka wanting to become a sovereign nation.
Right.
And he wants that to stop.
So we know that there's an opposing force / a separatist group.
Political upheaval.
Right. It's all over Ravka.
So much is happening.
And as this episode keeps going back and forth, now we're jumping back to West Ravka, and we see Kaz walking around with the goat, and he stumbles upon a separatist gathering, and we see this general speaking to a mass of people saying that, pretty much East Ravka is wrong, we're right, we need to unify. And the interesting thing is we also see the conductor shake hands with this general after he gets off the stage, and then they go into a tent together. So I'm curious. This character's completely new.
New, yeah.
This conductor guy. We heard from Helene that, he's a smuggler. He sells children. We heard from him he just takes in refugees and people that want to leave. Is it possible we have no idea who this guy is? I'm not saying the separatists are necessarily bad, but you can have radical forms of a group where it's like, this isn't great.
Well, something that I've actually been thinking about is our dear Alexei, right? So he showed up escaping this horrible thing that happened in the fold, and he somehow ends up in the hands of people that are trying to get information out of him. And we saw this general on the docks of the place where Alexei arrived. So this guy, although he's preaching, we need to be a nation, we need to come together, he's still dealing in some dark crap if he's willing to give Alexei to someone for 2 weeks to get the crap beat out of him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So can't be trusted. And the fact that the conductor is with him, WTF, conductor.
Right. I mean, he hasn't done anything that we've seen to make me not trust him, but it is interesting that he was with this general. So I guess we'll have to wait and find out. Then Kaz meets up with Inej, and she's at this memorial for people that were lost in the fold. And we get a little bit more of Inej's backstory, where she comes from and her parents. And, he tells her, I thought there was no distractions, but you can't blame her. And she feels like, maybe if she saw their name on there, she'd have some answers or closure, that type of thing, but they're not on there. And the only thing that she has is this hand-stitched, spiritual necklace that she carries with them. She has no answers. She was taken, sold, WTF.
She doesn't even know where her brother is.
Right.
Yeah.
Where is my family? What happened to them? What do I do? So, I mean, she was sold into indentured servitude. Kaz is trying to help her, but he's also this interesting, I like him a little bit better in this one because we're seeing more layers to him. He tells her hope is not good. Don't hope. Take it, push it down, pray, whatever you have to do, and get that out of your mind. He's very much like, don't deal with the thing that's going to hold you back and keep going forward. So there's obviously more to him that we're not finding out yet.
Exactly. And, I think about it, it's like this guy is here on this Million Kruger journey. What does he do with a Million Kruger? What is his want and need for this? I doubt it's only money.
Buy a fancier cane?
Diamond eyes.
I mean,
Ruby eyes.
He has emeralds right now, I'm pretty sure.
He said upgrade. Platinum head.
Right.
Diamond eyes. No, but I think that there's more to his backstory that we don't know about that is driving him through all this stuff.
And I think how the show's going to do it is going to be interesting to see. Because I know when Six of Crows happens, it's technically further in the future with them. So how much of the backstory that they hear secondhand are we going to hear, but also going to see firsthand? So I think it's interesting how they're stitching this all together.
What are you serving us right now that's brand new? What are you giving us that's actually from the original text? We won't know, but hopefully we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Now we're back with Nina, and she's on a Fjorden ship. And it's really stormy. They take her down below deck. There's other Grisha that are being held captive there. And we're seeing how the Fjordans deal with Grisha, how they treat them. They're going to take them on trial.
It's basically the Salem witch trials.
Well, right. I mean, they don't care.
They're
right?
like, we're going to put you on trial. She's like, yeah, but has anybody ever won these trials? He's like, no. You go there to die.
Obviously, this isn't going to be the last we see of Nina, and I'm pretty sure the guy, wink, wink, that's hooking her up to things, the guy that boloed her, is going to play a bigger part. But now we have a third story going on, and
we're going to be getting another character soon at some point.
Yep. Outside of the ship, the Crows and the conductor meet at the Shadowfold in all its swarthy glory. Jasper ends up meeting up with them with the alabaster coal, but with shooting company in tow.
He got into trouble. He wasn't supposed to. No side quests.
No side quests.
He couldn't help to gamble.
He gambled all that money away, but he stole 16 pounds of alabaster coal.
Even though he was supposed to get 20.
He was needed 20, and they don't find that out until after they were on this train, boat, skiff thing.
I mean, like, here's what's hilarious. I'm like, oh, this guy's name is the conductor. How is he going to get them across? Oh, he's a train conductor.
Yeah.
Got it.
By a coal-powered train.
Mm-hmm.
And I did like, so we're finding out a little bit more. They never said how they get across. So that was funny. That was like, oh, it's a train.
Mm-hmm.
There's train tracks in the fold. Smart.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Also, he did what the Grisha and everybody else should be doing is close up your vehicle and stop being exposed on it.
Cut to 2 episodes ago when I said, put those people in a cage on the skiff and they'll be fine. And then guess what? This guy, he did it, but nobody listens to me.
I mean, they did. Look.
Well,
they
that's
did
true. The Grisha didn't.
So back at the little palace, we see Marie and Nadia. They are people from the book. I was excited to see them. They're more of, they're not mean to Alina in the books, but they're just like, you know, they want to hang out with her because she's the it girl.
Yeah, they're very enamored by her. It feels very like Mean Girls.
Right.
In the sense of not that they're being mean, but they're like, oh my God, you're new, you're popular. Let's get together. You should be in our group.
Mm-hmm. I was also really, because when we see Alina this time, she's in her blue and gold kefta. And we never got the scene of her
saying no to the black one.
Right. So in the book, they give her a black kefta because that's the Darklings, General Kerrigan's color. And each group of Grisha have their own color, whatever house or order that they're in. And she felt like she was welcomed by the summoner. She is a summoner, so she wants to have blue kefta like the other summoners.
Mm-hmm.
And so they end up making her one, but they put gold on the embroidery for her to distinguish her a little bit. But she just shows up in it. I was like, oh, okay. That's like if Harry showed up with his wand.
Yeah, the only sort of like nod we get to it is when she is being presented to the king. She says to Genya, like, why am I wearing this? Why am I not wearing kefta? She's like, he needs to see you like this first, and then once he accepts you, you'll get the kefta.
Right.
So I guess that's the journey that we did not need to see.
I mean, I would have liked to see it.
I know, because it was kind of cool that she was like, I want to be with everybody else. Not wearing this black one.
Exactly. So she makes her way now to combat training. So we're getting to see a little bit of how the Grisha train and what goes on at the little palace. And we see Botkin. Casted perfectly. Mm-hmm. I liked him in the book. He was super tough on her, but knew he needed to be. He reminded me a lot of, and I'm sorry I keep bringing up other fandoms, but he reminds me of the swordsman that trained Arya in Game of Thrones.
Ooh, yeah.
Where he was very tough and he needed to be tough, but in the end, he cared about her and he liked her.
I mean, I really feel like no one is nice to Alina at the Little Palace. Like, no one. No one is nice to her. The king hates her. Genya thinks she's a joke. This guy's like, well, let's get to it, lady.
Yeah.
No one's just like, the sun summoner's here. They're like, suck it up. You gotta train.
Yeah, he questions, she's a sun summoner. Everybody knows that. But what if she can't use her abilities? And that's what Bakken is there for. He's there to train them in combat and not only to rely on their little science. And so he's like, have you been trained? And we see this little flashback of Mal and Alina training a little bit and her falling more deeply in love with him.
He's like, you're going to break your fingers. She's like, I love you.
These fingers? Caressing his face. So she's like, of course I've been trained. And to get back at Zoya for saying those nasty things that she said to her, he's like, who do you want to challenge? And she's like, that bitch right there. That one with the nasty face.
That's right. Zoya Malajikakova.
So they put their dukes up and Alina is kind of thrown around a little bit.
She gets swept. She gets dodged. She gets punched. It's not going good for Alina.
But Alina doesn't give up.
No, that's right.
She keeps standing back up just like a good protagonist in the story does. But then, of course, Zoya can't keep her mouth shut and she mocks how her and Mal tumbled together, essentially. And that doesn't sit right with Alina. She punches Zoya in the face.
Right in the face.
Zoya uses her squalor abilities.
How dare you?
And blasts her across the field.
She blacks out.
She blacks out. But we get another little vision of the white stag.
After she has this vision, she is woken up by our new friends, Nadia and Maria. And they sort of talk about Zoya. And they say this whole thing of like, well, Zoya is just bent out of shape because you're getting all this attention from the Darkling and she likes the Darkling. And then Nadia's like, but I don't know why she's going after the Darkling when she can be going after me. And I was like, yes, lesbian, let's go. I'm all here for it.
What are Nadia and Marie? I know they're summoners, but what? One's Inferni. Is the other one a Squalor or a Tidemaker?
I'm not sure, actually.
Oh, it'd be cool if it was Inferni and Tidemaker.
Research.
Opposites attract. So later, Alina is writing yet another letter to Mal and how she wishes he was there and how much she needs him. Mm-hmm. Maybe if you saw it, maybe if you were here, I would feel more at home. She then heads to the library and is creeped on by the creepy Apparat, the king's spiritual advisor. He tells her that it's important that they are friends while being creepy. I do have to say, he wasn't as creepy as I would hoped he to be. He didn't have the beard. He wasn't greasy. Like he invaded her personal space a little bit and was very like, we need to be friends. This is why I'm going to give you all this information. But I didn't get like Rasputin-y vibes from him.
I did like when he said, instead of like, oh, let me get some books for you, he said, let me curate some reading for you.
Yeah, that was weird. That was the worst part of him. This is where we get history of the Bonesmith, one of the first recorded Grisha in history. And essentially he wanted to increase his power and he would kill these creatures to get that power. This is where the amplifiers are being explained.
Right. Like it's this whole legend of how he took his own bones and created these creatures for other Grisha to kill and use to amplify their powers.
Exactly.
So it's pretty twisted.
Yeah, it is interesting because he gives quite a bit of exposition here, but I feel like it's a little muddy. So in the books, some animals are considered amplifiers. They're not common, but they're not mythical either. If a Grisha kills one of these animals and wears a piece of them, it then expands their powers.
In this one, though, they have to bond the material to their bodies.
Right.
So it's not just like wearing a necklace with a bear claw. It has to become a part of the Grisha in order for it to work.
Yeah, exactly. Just like in the books, Ivan had a bear claw. Mm-hmm. Zoya had tiger's teeth on a bracelet on her. So it's more gross in this and a little, I think it requires a little more sacrifice to get this power than just donning some of their bones.
Yeah. He also has this like really creepy closing line where he says, I think you will suffer more.
Yeah.
So he is not seeing a very bright future for our sun summoner.
Nope, not at all. In this, as he's explaining this to her, he escorts her to Bagra's rock cave. Like, give her a cottage.
She had a cottage in the book by a lake.
Yeah.
Now
I mean,
she lives in a cave.
she's a rock lady.
That's how mysterious she is.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they're just kind of keep her out of sight at this point.
Nobody wants to see the weird lady. Put her in a cave.
But it's none other than Madame Hooch from the Harry Potter movies.
I mean, her hair's less spunky and her eyes are less yellow, but it's the same spirit, that's for sure.
I mean, she looks great.
Oh, totally.
She was in the movie so long ago. So Bagra looks her up and down and isn't too impressed. I like Bagra. I mean, she doesn't give a shit. She's not all, you're the sun summoner, everything's great. She's like, no, I don't believe it. Can you do your powers without General Kerrigan holding your hand? I didn't think so.
Duty face.
Yeah.
She's like, who are you? Where are you from? What are you doing? What do you want?
This is also in the show our first little tiny hint / say of a living amplifier. Like Bagra mentions it a little bit, and Alina's like, "What do you mean he can amplify? Like what? What are you talking about?"
I just like when he holds my hand.
Too many amplifiers are being talked about.
Are they
at me.
bones or are they people? Tell me.
She then, after Bagra's like, come back to me whenever you can actually do something, she goes and writes yet another letter to Mal. We get a voiceover of it. And I'm not sure if this is separate letters or if it's one giant letter.
Dear Mal, here is page 882 of my letter from Little Palace.
I mean, at this point, she's gone through a roller coaster of emotions here. She's felt like she didn't belong, then felt like she did belong, then was accepted by Grisha, and then wasn't accepted by Grisha. And she's like, you know what? I'm done with it. I belong with the First Army. I was fine and happy there.
I want to be in my dirty tent with you.
So in the final moments of this episode, we see Alina go to dinner at the little palace. So this seems different than how I pictured it in the book. I mean, I didn't picture like Harry Potter Great Hall, 4 tables down the thing and everybody eating. It didn't seem like that many people. Maybe people rotate and eat at different times. But we see that she has a taster, which is somebody that would taste her food to make sure it's not poisoned.
And this guy is very, very excited about this job. And Marie and Nadia, who are sitting to her right and left, don't see this as weird at all. They're like, oh, wow, you have a taster. That's a big deal. And Alina's like, what's happening? And the guy literally takes a bite of her meat or whatever. And he's like, okay, seems good. He tries to go for another carrot, but she's still sort of struck by how weird this all seems. Marie and Nadia also tell her that don't get used to this type of fare because the Darkling really likes to keep them eating peasant food to keep them connected to the rest of Ravka. So this is really a special night in Alina's honor. But it's very much another fish out of water experience for her.
Yeah, but it's all ruined. Again, I feel like every situation in this episode, Alina's just doing what she's told to be doing, and somebody comes and says something rude to her. So this guy starts naming off people that have died. There's a battalion that seems like caught Alina's attention, one that Mal probably is a part of, so she's a little scared about that. And then this guy says like, oh, what are you doing eating? Why aren't you doing the fold stuff? How dare? What, like, what? She can't eat? Why? She's supposed to be practicing 24/7? No, that's not how living works.
Yeah, I guess the Sun Summoner isn't allowed to have sustenance.
You can't train without food, bruh.
I feel like I'm having trouble saying Sun Summoner. Kind of just want to say Sunmoner.
The whole time, I feel like I'm like some summoner.
Yeah, I keep saying some summoner.
Yeah.
Summoner. Summoner. But yeah, that's enough. That's like what I was saying before. I don't get it in the sense that here she is, the savior, the thing they've all been waiting for. They saw her light up like a million stars and they're all really rude to her.
Yeah.
They're just kind of like, you should be doing this thing. Why haven't you done it yet?
She's like, I don't even know where I'm at. So,
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
maybe this is really portraying how out of tune these folks in the palaces are.
Mm-hmm.
They really don't know what it's like out there. So they're like, she's like a light switch. Just turn her on and throw her in the fold.
Yeah. I mean, what could happen? I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Maybe Darkling could just cut her arm again and throw her in and see what happens.
That is a solution.
The last time we see the crows, pretty exciting scene. The
crows are being attacked by Volcra.
And there's like a lot of physics involved in this ride. It's like the weight must be evenly distributed. Velocity times mass equals the way through the fold. They have to keep the coal at a steady heat in order to go fast enough, because then there's a piece of the track that's not going to be there. There's also some sort of sled mechanism that's going to happen. So they have to be like very calm, very still, but also they're going to be panicking because the Volcra hear them in the fold.
As they're in it, the conductor likes to let them know there's a stretch of track that's just not there. Which is interesting. Like, why isn't there a part of the track there? Because it's like, there's track through most of it. There's no track. And then there's track outside of it. So what happened there?
I don't know. But you have to think, right? How does he know about this track? How did he know how to fix the train in order to get through there? So does that mean the track was broken before the fold even existed, and that's how he was smuggling people? So it's just a little unclear about how he knows all of this information. I mean, granted, if he's gone through before, he might know, oh, the track isn't there. But I don't know, if you didn't know that you had to go at a certain speed at that point, how would he have made it through the fold to begin with?
I mean, it's very possible he could have built it, but I don't think he could have built it while the fold was there.
Right, like very quietly putting tracks down.
Yeah, but...
Okay, we have to go with it. We have no other choice. That's their way through the fold.
So we also find out in this situation, so Volcra are attacking their little car, and Jesper gets a little antsy about it. Obviously, they all do. We find out that the goat is just to calm people down. Like, it's like
it's a therapy animal.
Yeah, an emotional support goat, which is hilarious. I'm like, oh, yay, it's not for them to throw it to the Volcra.
Eat or something. Yeah. I think that there needs to be a line of plush Shadow and Bone goats.
Ooh.
Purely for squeezing.
Ooh. Oh, it's a big size or life size.
Real chunky.
The conductor also notices that since Jesper only gave them 16 pounds of coal and not 20, they are 20 seconds behind, meaning they might not make it from that stretch that the track isn't there. They have to be going a certain speed and at a certain time because he's timed it. He has like all of these slash marks in his arm, his tally marks of how many times he's made it.
Yeah.
Back and forth through the fold. It's interesting when he mentioned that because, Anesh kind of looks at him as like, you went through that many times. And he's like, it's a numbers game. So this guy is he's weird. I can't pinpoint him.
There's also a whole system of metal notifications that he set up as well. Things that the train hits into. That way he knows how far along they are. I don't know how he's done this.
Maybe he would like throw people out. And
maybe.
They would like, Volcra would get distracted. He would like put his thing that he built and then he would keep going. It seems interesting because he seems like he uses people's first impressions of him. He uses it against him, or he knows that people will find him unassuming. So when they were running to get to the little car, he put up a sign that there was landmines. And Kaz and Anesh were like, oh, we're going to follow you. And he's like, oh, no, I just put that up to make people think there was. That's how he wanted them to take that. So they just walk over there. And then when the people that were chasing Jesper come, they start blowing up because of the mines. And he's like, wait, I thought you said there was no mines. He's like, no, I said I put the sign up. And I was like, but you knew what you were saying.
Yeah. And when we first meet him, he's a little more bumbling. I mean, granted, Inej is there to kill him, but he's much more confident now. He's much more like, you guys need to calm down because I know my way through here. So he's definitely changed in demeanor.
Yeah, this guy is interesting. I'm going to keep my eye on this little
Especially
conductor.
After that meeting.
So at this point, Jesper, with his goat in hand, calms down and he's able to sharpshoot their way through the fold, the rest of the fold. We get a pretty cool scene. We get a slow-mo close-up of the revolver / bullet going through a Volcra. It's great.
Yeah, it was pretty badass. And I feel like the goat is Jesper's amplifier.
Yeah.
For sharpshooting.
Everybody needs one. And then in the final scene of this episode, it ends with like a montage of past footage, which I thought was interesting. And yet another voiceover of a letter to Mal. She wrote a lot to him. And I think that I'm assuming this is the only episode that she's writing letters to because it seems to happen a lot. But we haven't seen Mal return any letters. So that's concerning.
I do like the letters. I think that they kind of share her inner feelings, which we might not get otherwise. And also in the book, I feel like we didn't know about these letters until she said to Mal, I sent you letters, you didn't write me back.
Yeah, I mean,
So I think it's nice to see them now happening so that we as the audience can go, oh my God, she's writing him letters, and then see the betrayal of him not writing back.
yeah, I don't think it was like as big of a deal like throughout an episode in the book of her writing the letters, but yeah, I guess that's true. You get to find out what she's thinking in her inner monologue, and this last one in particular, she all but like confesses her love to him and tells him that he's her true north.
Yeah, that was sweet.
Which is home. I was like, oh, that's pretty sweet. I like that. You go, girl.
Yeah.
And end of episode.
Done.
So it ended on an interesting note. It was like the crows made it through the fold, but then we get this like Alina confessing her love to Mal. Is he even getting these letters? Was this confession just kind of empty?
And Nina's on a ship.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. Oh, poor Nina.
So her story is hanging there. And yeah, the crows have made it through. I mean, I wonder how quickly they're going to be able to get to the palace. I guess they have to get Nina first now. Or is Nina going to find her own way out? And Alina, I think we're going to have a little more training.
Maybe Nina's not even part of the crow's mission at this point.
That's true. Maybe it's not until season 2 that she gets there.
Yeah, because if they just got through the fold, they're going to get to the little palace, I would assume, quicker than going up to Fjerda.
Right.
Than to go to Ravka. So, I mean, or maybe they'll meet up. Who knows? Lots of storylines converging.
Also, where are they even taking her, though? That's another question, right? Because Fjerda is landlocked to Ravka. They have her on a boat.
Well, they're probably just going, maybe that's how they get around the fold, because they own the whole northern part.
Okay.
So they're just going in the true sea up, and who knows actually where they're going.
We need more maps.
No idea.
And journeys.
An episode would not be complete without Derek's signature mini podcast / segment at the end of every episode.
All right, let's gear up for another badass to the bone. I want to introduce you all to Clementine Delay, who I am calling the Bearded Beauty, born in 1865 and died in 1939. As a little girl growing up in France, working on her parents' farm, Clementine was always a little different, especially when she was a teenager and started to grow facial hair. Back then, she had a fear of these follicles and would, of course, shave. Later in life, she fell in love with the local baker, Joseph, and they decided to open a bar. On a visit to a carnival, Clementine saw a bearded lady and was inspired. She decided that she was tired of shaving and would let her beard blossom.
Well, you let that thing flow, girl.
That's right. For the rest of her life, Clementine wore her beard proudly and became famous, not only at their cafe that they aptly named Café de la Femme Barbe, but worldwide. She was known all over France, became the mascot of France's soldiers in World War I, and traveled throughout Europe to appear in royal courts as a guest of honor. She took ownership of her whiskers and ran with it. Clementine is a badass because she loved who she was, which was something the world said she shouldn't, and they were enamored with it.
How did they shave back then?
I guess it's just like a
pure knife?
Knife, very, very sharp knife on a stone. Yeah, but she kind of just owned it, and she even broke barriers because she would like take photos and be put on postcards, and at that point in time, women weren't allowed to dress as men, but they were like, no, you should dress as a man for these postcards that we can then sell. Like, she was allowed to break that barrier.
That's interesting. That's so, why was she? I mean, there was obviously other bearded women.
Right.
So it's like, why was she the one that was like, we need her as a mascot. We need her to go on a press tour.
Right. And it was weird because she just sort of made this decision, owned it. Someone tried to pay her to be in a carnival, and she said, no, that's not what I want to do. So she kind of took it upon herself to be the type of famous bearded lady that she wanted to be.
Well, I guess, yeah, she wasn't seen as a sideshow.
A sideshow.
Yeah, a freak show or whatever.
Yeah.
It was, I'm just a lady that likes to grow my beard. You want my face on a stamp? Ask me.
That's right. Totally. DM me. We'll see what happens.
I thought this was going to be the story of the first bearded lady, which I don't even know who the first bearded lady is. But when you were like, yeah, there was another bearded lady, I was like, where is this going?
So many bearded ladies.
They form a group.
Yes, a super team.
Good one. Did not expect that. That came out of left field.
Little Clementine delay. How could we not spotlight someone with a beard when we both have beards?
That is true. That's very true. Beard gang.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Till next time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to A Bite Of. Artwork and editing by our own Noah. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at A Bite Of Pod and on Facebook at A Bite Of. If you have questions, recommendations, or just want to say hi, you can email us at abiteofpod@gmail.com. You can find us on all podcast platforms. Please be sure to rate and review to spread the word. Hope you join us next time on A Bite Of. Bye.